Hey, welcome to Chapter 18 in the McKay book, The Scientific Revolution and the Enlightenment. I'm your host for today, Mr. Oliver. So, why was there a scientific revolution now? You mean like right now? Like the other day? No. I'm talking about why is Chapter 18 all of a sudden showing up and saying scientific revolution? What's that about? Well, essentially, it's not like it just poof appears. Keep in mind that the scientific revolution overlaps quite a bit with the Renaissance and the Reformation and the Age of Exploration. So when we see this, say the scientific revolution or whatever, we're just kind of saying, yo, there's a different way of thinking. Just like the Reformation. It's not like a big banner came down from the sky and was like, guess what, guys? Reformation time. Of course it's not like that. But the scientific revolution takes place, and it does profoundly change thinking. Not overnight, but over a long period of time. All right, so what? Renaissance humanism. Renaissance humanism. I remember that, Mr. Oliver. Renaissance humanism, that was when, let's see. Renaissance humanism was when the Renaissance were studying the humans. Close. The Renaissance was when people began to look back to the past in order to look to the future. And they didn't just read dramas. They didn't just read histories. They also read, wait for it, phenomena. Science. That's right. Greek people did science. I know it's crazy, right? But they totally did. And I don't know why it's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. Of course they did science. They're not dumb at all. They're very intelligent. But anyway, okay, just go on. Anyway, so that, plus patronage, which is when you're paying to see things done, people were curious. They're like, can you figure out a better way to have my ship sail further? Why, yes, I can. I can. Will you give me money? Yes, then I definitely can. So that's patronage, right? Those things combine. The better navigational tools lead to new inventions, which lead to people being able to not only explore in like the age of exploration, but also be able to go like, I got me a telescope. I got me a microscope. What happens when I put this piece of wood under the oh, snap. I can see stuff up close. And allows people to examine the world more accurately. They probably didn't really say that, but you see the point. Two big terms in this chapter: geocentric and heliocentric. Geo, meaning earth-centric, is what the Catholic Church had been throwing out for years. They were basing this off of two things. Number one, common sense. God created the earth. Obviously, it's the center of the universe, right? Number two, science. What kind of science? Because you're like, wait a second, that's not right, is it? No, it's not right. The earth is not the center of the universe. Instead, the sun is. But Aristotle had supposed that the earth was. And the Christian church, when they got a hold of Aristotle, it was like, well, I mean, not literally because he's dead, but his works, they look at it and they say, okay, hey, cool. Aristotle, he got some interesting things to say. Because if you look at the Bible seems to imply that the earth is the center of the universe. Joshua had said that he wanted the sun to stand still. The sun, how's it standing still if it's not rotating around the earth? Think about it. And, of course, the Lutherans and all the Protestants, where Scripture is the most important thing, are like, he's totes right. Obviously, Aristotle is right as well. So, everybody's reaffirming this whole Aristotelian or Ptolemaic. Ptolemy is this other dude. He's this Greek guy that was around in Egypt, actually, and he was trying to prove that Aristotle's geocentric theory was correct, and he did, using math. Of course, it's wrong, but he proves it using math. So, it's wrong math, of course. So, there's that. That's what's sitting around. Then all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, people are believing this. You got the sun, you got all the planets, of course, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and Mercury. Of course, the moon, which apparently is another planet. And of course, there's the ring of fire, which people could fall into and burn, burn, burn in the ring of fire, in the air. And then you got the earth, right there at the center of the universe. And Aristotle supposed that on earth, there were laws, okay? There were things that governed earth. Everything is made of 4 elements: earth, water, fire, and air. What's that? You Avatar fans out there going like, I know this. I know all of the elements. You do. So Avatar just helped you study. Go, after you're done studying, take a break, go watch an episode of Avatar, and be like, Mom, I'm studying. Because you are. Yeah, actually, do more work first. Don't just stop here. Anyway, so he supposed that everything out in the universe was actually made of a 5th element named quintessence. Oh, how beautiful. It's not right, but it's a theory. Then along comes this homeboy right here. And I really like his hair, actually. His hair is quite beautiful and long, flowing locks. And his name is Copernicus, or Nicholas, if you want to be formal. And Nicholas Copernicus is tasked by the church to reform the calendar. See, there's this whole deal, which you don't really care about, quite frankly, about the Easter not showing up on the right day because the year is actually not 365 days. It's 365.25. Whatever. You know, this is why we have leap years, thanks to this guy right here. Thanks to Copernicus. Thanks to all the kids who were born on February 29th. And now they only get a birthday every 4 years. I hope you're happy. All right, anyway, those poor kids are only like probably 5 years old watching this, maybe 3. Everybody else around them is 15, 18, whatever. I'm not a mathematician. Anyway, he's reforming the calendar, and while he's doing it, he's like, kind of seems to me like the Earth is not really the center of the universe. As I'm studying all my astrological science charts, I'm kind of starting to think that the Earth is the center of the universe only in the mind of Aristotle, and in real life, it's heliocentric. And sure enough, this is what Copernicus comes up with. You got the sun here, you got Mercury, Venus, Earth correctly is the 3rd planet, and around it is the moon, and then you got Mars, and then you got Jupiter, and then you got Saturn. What about Neptune? They don't find Neptune till later. Saturn you can see with the naked eye on a good night with good conditions. Neptune, I'm not an astro scientist, but I'm pretty sure you can't see Neptune under most conditions. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, he's like, what do I do with all this information? Because I'm challenging Scripture. If I publish this, I mean, if God created the universe, why wouldn't he put Earth at the center? Aren't we the most important thing? And if so, if we're not really the center of the universe, what does this say about us, about humanity? How big is the universe anyway? Are there other planets with life? Mind freak! Everybody's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Nikki, you can't publish this. And he's like, I know, bro. I know. But I'm right. And they're like, bro, you might be right, but you can't publish it, bro. And he's like, bro, I know. I imagine Copernicus, just look at him. Doesn't he look like the kind of guy that like walking around without a shirt on half the time and calling people bro? I can totally see it. Anyway, he does publish his book on the revolutions of the heavenly spheres, but he publishes it kind of after he's dead. He's not like a zombie. I mean, he arranges its publication as he was already getting ready to kick off, and he dedicates the book to the Pope. And it's kind of like, dude, sorry, I don't mean to offend. I think I'm right. Please don't excommunicate me. I'm already dead. Out. And Copernicus is pretty much ignored for that most part by the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church doesn't fret about it too much. And that flies in the face of what you've been taught. You've been taught. If you were taught this, sometimes they skip this in like 7th grade or whatever. But if you had it before, you might have been taught the Catholic Church was freaking out about all this science. In reality, not so much. The Catholic Church kind of was mellow at first. That will change. But that was the story. Alright, flash forward to this homeboy right here. What's his name? Tycho Brahe. Is Copernicus still alive? Not when Brahe's doing his big stuff. Brahe's a Danish dude, and he is working in an observatory that was paid for by the King of Denmark. Brahe himself is a Copernican, which is to say he believes in a heliocentric, the sun-centered universe, as opposed to a geocentric or earth-centered universe. But Brahe, he's a pencil pusher. Okay? Now, I'm not saying the guy's not manly. Homeboy, look at his nose. Look at his nose. Oh, he has an interesting nose. Actually, his nose got chopped off. What? His nose got chopped off. What? His nose got chopped off during a duel and replaced with brass. Okay, error alert. McKay says that it's gold. That's not true. It's actually brass. I have a student who's Danish. He got really uptight about this. He was like, "It's brass, Mr. Oliver. It's brass." And I was like, "Dude." I was like, "Bro." I was like, "Copernicus, bro. All right." Anyway, my guy says it's brass. I cannot confirm or deny because I don't want to Google it because it seems kind of like a waste of time. Anyway, Brahe is observing all this stuff going on, and in 1572, he's like, "What? Looks like something's like changing up there." But wait, says everybody in the world. Aristotle said the heavens were made of this fifth element, and everything was perfect and unchanging. So how exactly is something changing? At some point, people eventually were like, well, is it like a comet? Like nowadays people, not back then people. And eventually people have kind of decided it's a supernova probably from 1572. We cannot travel back in time and figure it out, but based on his observations, which are very good, we think, yeah, probably a supernova. And that's not important. What is important is that Brahe has all this information, and then along comes his assistant. After Brahe dies, in an interesting way, I might add, his bladder explodes when he's at a party. That's right, his bladder explodes. He's a drinker, right? And he's like getting turned up, you know, and don't do that, kids, because this is what happens. Listen. And he's, you know, partying, you know, all that. And then the king shows up, King of Denmark. Well, there's a rule. You can't leave until the King of Denmark is all like, "All right, I'm getting up now. You guys can all leave." So Brahe is like, "Oh, I gotta go to the bathroom." And he's like, and the king is like, "Tough luck, bro. A lot of bros tonight. I'm sorry about the bros." And then Tycho Brahe is like, "Oh, well, I guess I gotta hold it because I don't want to disrespect the king who built me an observatory." So bladder explodes. Okay. And when your bladder explodes, apparently it's really bad for you. You get what's called septic poisoning all up in your business, and you end up dying shortly thereafter. So, next time teacher is like, "Yo, can't go to the bathroom," be all like, "What about Tycho Brahe?" It's really an invalid thing to say, but it's one of those things where you can seem smart, and if you start talking about septic poisoning and stuff like that, I mean, for gosh sakes, two things. Number one, go to the bathroom when you need to go to the bathroom, preferably between classes. Number two, learning is important. Don't leave to go to the bathroom. But also don't get septic poisoning. Anyway, so this handsome fella right here with the gigantic, like, look at that. He's got like the goatee down to here. Anyway, he was Brahe's assistant, and Brahe was always keeping him back. Johannes Kepler, though, he's a brain. And Brahe was jealous of Kepler. So Kepler, once Brahe's dead, Kepler's like, "Oh, all I do is win," because he discovers the 3 laws of planetary motion. And 3 laws of planetary motion, or all he does this all using Brahe's data, and basically planets move at different speeds. The distance away from the sun dictates how fast the planets move, and they move in elliptical orbits as opposed to circles, which you might recall. And go back for a second. See, Copernicus even had it wrong as far as thinking they were circles. Kepler's like, bro, elliptical, like your eye. See, my eyes aren't big circles because I'm not an anime character. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I don't want to offend any anime characters out there. So, Copernicus speculated. Kepler, what did you do? You used mathematics to prove your theories? OMG! Kepler literally just answered us! And he did. And he used correct math, as opposed to Ptolemaic math. Tough luck, Ptolemy. Doesn't that sound like a good sitcom? Tough luck, Ptolemy? Anyway. Later on, here's this dude, Galileo Galilei. Good name. Usually people just call him Galileo, or Gal if you're into that whole brevity thing. And Galileo is a G, as the kids say. He comes up with a bunch of different laws, like ideas. He's dropping stuff off the Tower of Pisa, being all like, oh, I wonder how that's going to work if I drop a bowling ball and a feather. And everybody's like, bowling ball is obviously going to go down faster. And he's like, we'll see. Boom. And they're like, dude. He's like, and yet the feather is lighter. Everybody's like, that's a good point. He's like, I think it's because of wind resistance. Everybody's like, whoa. And he's like, you know what else? I think stuff will just keep on going forever until something else is slowing it down. But what? Now, it won't be till Isaac Newton where we come up with the whole idea of gravity. I mean, not like gravity didn't exist, I mean, but calling it gravity. But Galileo, point being, homie is systematically using experiments to try and learn about the world. And he's the kind of guy that's like, oh, I just heard about a telescope. I'm going to build my own. Did he invent the telescope? He did not. He's the kind of guy, he says, I'm going to build my own. He does. He goes, that's him looking into the sky. He looks at the moon. And everybody's like, oh, the moon. Well, Aristotle had said everything was perfect and unchanging up there in space. And he's all like, bros, it's not perfect and unchanging. The moon has craters. That's right, craters. And so he says, guys, the heavens are full of imperfections. And this actually proves Copernican theory. Now, the Catholic Church, they don't do well with this. It's not like everybody... Okay, the stereotype is Catholic Church was flipping out because they were like, no, we're in denial. A lot of people within the Catholic Church, some of the higher ups, some of the more educated on the science stuff, were kind of like, you know, Galileo, bro, we know you're right, but the way you present your information and the way you openly mock anyone who says that the Earth-centered or geocentric theory is correct, it's a bit dangerous because you're openly mocking the Pope. And Galileo's like, yeah, but I'm right. And everybody's like, well, okay, but dude, you can't do that. And I like to think, I like this little contrast here. You got Galileo here, and I think this is the way he likes to see himself. Is like, guys, here's the moon. Why don't you just look for it yourself? Through my little telescope I built, I brought it here. By the way, did I mention I built this? No, I didn't invent it, as is commonly misattributed to me. But look here. And then in real life, like the Pope just wanted to hit him over the head with the telescope. It's a joke. It's not real. This is not really what happened on the right. Anyway, he's put on trial for heresy because he writes a dialogue on the two chief systems of the world in which, and McKay uses this word to show that he's in touch with the kids, he lampoons geocentric theory and all its adherents. What it means is he makes fun of anybody who believes in geocentric theory. There's a character in his book, it's one of those dialogues where different characters are talking and they all represent different things. The dude who's geocentric guy is actually named Simplitus. It's like the simple dude. Kind of simple, like, simple. So they put him on trial for heresy. And they're saying, look, you are speaking untruths, you are attacking the Pope. And he's like, and then they're like, we're going to send in the Spanish Inquisition and torture you. Not the Spanish Inquisition, I'm sorry. Just the Inquisition. I'm not going to delete that because a lot of people make their error, and I made it too. We're all human. Anyway, so he gets tortured and whatnot, and then he's like, you know what, guys? Guess what? I was wrong. Turns out the Earth is the center of the universe. And everybody's like, oh, Galileo, really? And he's like, totes, totally. Please don't hit me again. And he spends the last years of his life under house arrest. It's kind of a sad story of a man that ultimately was a genius. He was right, but he flew too close to the sky, to the sun, like little Icarus, and he got burned. He got a little too full of himself. So there's a story, and this is probably a fake story, it's probably not true, where he said, you know, like, hey, Galileo, during his trial, hey, Galileo, hey, isn't it true that, like, the Earth is the center of the universe? He's like, yep. And yeah, it moves. So it's like mumbling it under his breath. This never happened. If he had said this, he would have gotten more tortured and more dead more quickly. He did not really say this. This is one of those things where people like to give stories. I mean, I love stories too, I get it. But people like to ascribe stories to Galileo and make him like this martyr of science. And in a way he is, certainly, because he does suffer for his beliefs. But he also flips over and gives up his beliefs. And that's not really very martyrish of him. So this kind of lets him keep a little bit of his face, so to speak, his respect. I'm not knocking you, Galileo, though. I don't like being tortured, I suppose. I've never been tortured, but I don't think I'd like it. Then along comes Isaac Newton. And Isaac Newton is often referred to as the guy that puts it all together. He is an awesome scientist. Top 3 list of scientists in the whole world ever. He's in the discussion for like top 3. And of course, everybody's heard the story about like, oh, Isaac Newton, he was sitting under an apple tree and he got hit by an apple, and that's how he discovered gravity. That's not true. That's not true. Did you know it was a fig tree? A fig tree in the original story, which isn't even true. And it bounced on its head. Minstrel? Is that why they're called Fig Newtons? Yes, it is. It is. But the Apple, Big Apple, comes along. The Apple Corporation, not the computer people, the delicious, healthy snack. And they're like, it's an apple. And they're like, actually, it's a fig. And they're, it's an apple. Aren't apples more fun to draw? Everybody's like, well, that's true. This is fair. Did you know it's the same thing with the Old Testament? Go and read, if you're interested in such things. Actually, read the book of Genesis. The fruit which Eve picks from the tree of knowledge is described as a fruit, not an apple. And originally in art, also depicted as a fig. But suppression and repression of fig-related stories aside, Newton is most important for his principles of natural mathematics and science, abbreviated as the Principia. It's not Principia, it's Principia, because the C's in Latin are hard C's, like he writes it in 1687. He says, look, guys, yeah, I'm a genius, but I've stood on the I've stood on the shoulders of giants in order to create this. I'm building from all these scientists. And I'm saying like, okay, look, Copernicus, thank you. Galileo, thank you. Kepler, thank you. Because I'm taking all of your work, all that hard work you guys did, and it was good. And I'm putting it all together. I'm wrapping it up with a... I'm sorry, I just hit my microphone. If that was like a big boom. Sorry about that. I'm putting it all together, putting a bow on it. You know what I'm calling it? Gravitational force. Kepler, you were right. The planets do move slower when they're further away from the sun. I don't know. I guess this is the sun because I'm further away. That's because of gravity. Galileo, you were like, stuff rolls, but it just stops. How come? Gravity. All of that. So a lot of people call it a synthesis because it's obviously with the law of gravity. And so, however, I thought gravity was a theory. Gravity is included under, I had to Google this, under Einstein's theory of general relativity that explains why things fall. but we also have Newton's law of universal gravitation. So, all right. Let's talk about the scientific method. All right. So that was. I should probably explain what this is. This is a dead dude. This is an anatomy lesson, basically. People started applying, like, hey, we can use ways of looking at the world. We can codify a whole scientific method. And you're like, oh, I've heard about that. Let's like experimenting and stuff. And here comes Sir Francis Bacon to be like, my name's Bacon, so you know you can trust me. I got an idea. I think you should use something I like to call experimentation. And people are all like, all right, what's that? And he's like, all right. It's not like I invented experimentation, but this is called inductive reasoning. I walk in a room. I'm like, okay, here I am in this room. I wonder what will happen if I do this. Picking this up, picking this up, picking this up. All right. Now, I did my experiment. Now I'm going to try to draw a conclusion. I learned that when I hold things in front of the camera, it blocks it. And you're like, well, duh. Everybody knows that. Did you know it when you were a baby? No. So not everyone knows it, because there are a lot of babies in the world. But more to the point, inductive reasoning means that you experiment and then you draw conclusions from the experimentation. And Bacon is very open to new ideas. He's like, guys, everybody should be like experimenting, and everybody should be trying to figure out the way the world works and all that kind of stuff. And everybody's like, oh, that's cool, Bacon. We like that. Thank you. But it's really this fella right here that gets most of the credit, sometimes unjustly, for reasoning, because he's the one who comes up with deductive reasoning. And I always tell my students the way to remember René Descartes, his name is correctly pronounced Descartes, is that Descartes deductive or Descartes deductive. Don't go around saying René Descartes or Descartes, but it might help you remember Descartes deductive, whereas Bacon is like the other one, inductive. All right, there's no way around that. Bacon goes in your tummy, inductive. Don't actually dig up Francis Bacon and devour him, by the way. This is bad form. So Descartes is a French mathematician that uses deductive reasoning. That is to say, he begins, instead of the other way, he begins with the idea that, like, okay, here's what I think. Now I'm going to try to prove it. And you can use logic to reach these answers. You can use experiments. You say, like, okay, here's what I think. It's working backwards. This is kind of the opposite of inductive reasoning. He's famous for one day, he wakes up and he's like, you know what? I'm going to just doubt everything in the whole world. How do I even know I exist? Pretty heavy thinking, right, dude? Right, man? Right, moon? Right, moon? Do I exist? Ultimately, he decides, well, I can conceive of the question, therefore, I probably exist. But think about it. How do you know the stuff you know? Is it because your parents tell you? Because your teachers tell you? Are you sure? Get a second opinion. I'm not saying, like, if your teacher's like, don't stab yourself in the eye, that you should be like, I need a second opinion. Obviously don't, because just don't. But if your teacher tells you something like, you can't go to the bathroom, your bladder won't explode, look it up and be like, oh, actually, TYCHO BRAHE, your bladder can't explode, bro. So, here's my book. I don't know why you're holding your textbook like this. Maybe just point like this. That'd be a little easier. But there's that. This is actually going to be popularized with the Enlightenment, with the whole idea of dare to know. Doubt everything. That's the scientific. You've heard of it, the scientific method. Now, I have some links here, and I'll put them in the comments for this, but I don't want to show them in the middle of this. I don't want any kind of copyright issue. But There's a Schmoop video that is very good with talking about inductive versus deductive reasoning. They're doing it for an essay, so really you can stop the video a little early in my opinion if you're just using it for what's the difference, but it's pretty good. And also Sherlock, the BBC one, not the Robert Downey Jr. or the Basil Rathbone or any of the other ones, but Sherlock with, what's his name, Benadryl Cumberstarch or whatever his name is. He's very good. It's a really good show. But when he first meets Watson in the second link there, he is talking to him and asking him series of, well, he made a bunch of observations and then he's making a conclusion. So it's like, which one is it, inductive or deductive? Well, he's taking in information first and then reaching conclusions. So it's actually inductive. A lot of people think Sherlock Holmes is a deductive dude, but that's destructive to reasoning because that's wrong. It's inductive. So watch those at your leisure. If the Sherlock thing is up illegally, then I didn't know. Don't watch illegal things. Just go watch the first episode of Sherlock on Netflix, or rent it, or go to a friend's. If you have a geeky friend, they know about Sherlock. Trust me. And just be like, I'd like to watch Sherlock, and they'll be like, finally it's happening. And then they'll take you to their television room, and they'll put on the first episode, which I think is Study in Pink or something, and then you can watch the episode there. Good. I'm going to stop here, actually. Then you can watch the episode there. Alright, I'm going to stop there. We're going to come back for enlightenment a different time. Peace out. Keep it real, as the kids say. Before we go, I want you to hear something. It's a little friend of mine called Keyboard Cat.